My name is Hagar, daughter of no renown, servant of men, and wanderer between promises. I was not born free. I was born in the sands of Egypt, a land that worshipped gods made of gold and stone. I remember the scent of baked clay, the hum of markets, and the laughter of children I never played with. My mother was a handmaid, her life was bound to another woman's will. When I was old enough to carry water on my head and keep my eyes low, I too was given into service. I learned early that beauty and obedience were a slave's armor. I spoke softly, moved quickly, and listened when others whispered. It was in those days that I first heard the name Sarai, a foreign woman from Ur who came with her husband Abram, speaking of one invisible God, a God who had no image, no altar, no idol. To me, that was strange. To my heart, it was wondrous. When Sarai returned to Egypt after a famine, she found favor before Pharaoh. I was chosen from among the maidens to serve her. I didn't know it then, but my journey into the wilderness had already begun. In the glow of oil lamps, Sarai would speak softly of her God, a God who called her husband to leave everything behind, who promised him descendants as countless as the stars. Her eyes often grew dim when she spoke of children. I did not yet understand why that I was young, curious, and eager to please. I thought my service in their tent was destiny's kindness. But destiny was weaving a story I could not see, one that would break and rebuild me in ways I could never imagine. The years passed quietly under Abram's tent. The man was kind, but distant, his eyes often lifted to the stars as if speaking to an unseen friend. Sarai grew restless. Each moon came and went, yet her womb stayed silent. I often found her praying in the morning light, whispering her pain. I pitied her, though I dared not say it. To be barren was a shadow no woman wished to bear. One night, I heard her voice tremble beside Abram's tent. "Behold now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing," she said. "Go in unto my maid, it may be that I may obtain children by her." Those words struck me like a cold wind. Her maid. Me. I felt the weight of the decision before I even understood it. In our world, a servant's body was not her own. My yes or no meant little. Still, I could not silence the storm within. I was to give Abram what Sarai could not, a child. I tried to be still when Sarai told me. She smiled, but it was the smile of a woman breaking quietly inside. "You will do this for me, Hagar. You will carry my promise." I bowed, hiding my tears. That night, I entered Abram's tent trembling. I was a vessel, chosen not by love but by arrangement. When the child stirred within me weeks later, I thought it a miracle. But miracles can be heavy. I began to see myself differently, no longer just a maid. I was carrying Abram's son. The son of promise, or so I believed. As my belly swelled, so did my pride. Sarai still commanded me, but her voice trembled now. She would ask me to fetch water, and I moved slower than before. I knew it was wrong, yet I felt powerful for once in my life. I had something she could never have. Her eyes began to darken toward me. The tent, once filled with gentle silence, became heavy with unspoken war. One morning she cried out before Abram. "My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom," and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. I looked away, but her words cut me. Abram's face was weary. "Behold, thy maid is in thy hand, do to her as it pleaseth thee." That day, Sarai's anger fell upon me like the desert sun. She struck me with her tongue and hand. I ran from her presence, my tears mixing with the dust of the wilderness. The desert knows no mercy. I walked until my feet bled, the child within me turning restlessly. The sun burned above, and the air shimmered with silence. My heart was hollow, my hope fading. There, by a spring on the way to Shur, I fell to the ground and cried out. God of Abram, do you see me too? And then, the air changed. The desert had grown silent when I heard his voice. Not thunder, not fire, just a presence that made the air tremble. Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou? And whither wilt thou go? I lifted my face, eyes swollen from crying. I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai, I whispered. Then he said something no one had ever said to me. Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hand. My heart broke again. How could I return to the place of pain? But the voice continued, steady as the wind. I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. Tears ran down my face as I clutched my belly. He heard me. He saw me. I looked at the spring beside me, its water clear and glistening. I whispered through trembling lips. Thou God sayest me. And so, I named that place Bir Lahai Roi, the well of him who lives and sees me. I returned to Sarai's tent with new strength. I was still a servant, still bound, but no longer unseen. For I had met the God who finds lost women in the wilderness. When I returned to Sarai's tent, her eyes widened. She did not speak, but Abram looked at me long, as if the wilderness had written something new upon my soul. I said nothing about the voice I had heard. I simply served, quietly, as before. But something within me had changed. I was no longer just a maid. I was a mother carrying a divine promise. Sarai watched me with wary eyes. She could not understand what had happened out there. The desert had marked me with peace she could not touch. The months moved slowly, heavy with both fear and faith. I began to feel the strong kicks of the child, the sound of his heartbeat echoing in my chest like drums of destiny. Abram visited my tent often, speaking kindly, asking how I fared. Sometimes, when Sarai's gaze grew cold, I wondered if he, too, remembered the promise the Lord had spoken. Then one morning, under the golden dawn, the pain came, sharp and certain. The camp women gathered around me. I screamed, I prayed, I clutched the sand, and at last, I heard the first cry of my son. A sound that split my soul open with joy. Abram came and lifted him gently. His wrinkled face softened as he whispered, Ishmael. The name I had heard in the wilderness. The God who sees had kept his word. Ishmael grew like the desert wind, wild, strong, and free. He laughed often, and his laughter healed me. When he ran, the sand seemed to make way for his feet. Abram loved him deeply. I saw it in his eyes every time he lifted him high. But Sarai's eyes told another story. Her smiles were forced, her touch absent. Sometimes I caught her watching us from a distance, her lips moving in silent prayers I could not hear. Years passed. The camp grew, the flocks multiplied, and Abram's name spread across the land. Yet in the quiet moments, Sarai still carried sorrow. She would touch her barren belly when she thought no one saw. I often whispered to Ishmael, You, my son, are the promise. He would giggle and press his tiny hand against my face, but deep down, I knew the promise was larger than my own hope. It belonged to the unseen God who had found me by the well. Then, one night, Abram returned from his prayers with a light in his eyes. He said the Lord had spoken to him again, changing his name to Abraham and Sarai's to Sarah. And that soon, Sarah herself would bear a child. That I smiled politely, but my heart sank. Ishmael was 14. I thought our place was secure. But I could see it, the shift, the slow turning of destiny away from us. The day Sarah gave birth, the camp rejoiced. Trumpets sounded, women sang, and Abraham wept tears of joy. I stood at the edge of the crowd, holding Ishmael's hand tightly. They called the child Isaac, meaning laughter. And indeed, laughter filled every tent, but not for me. Sarah's joy was like sunlight too bright to stand under. She walked with a new pride, her long years of shame erased in a moment. I wanted to rejoice for her, truly, I did, but each smile she gave was edged with something sharp. Ishmael loved the baby. He played near him, tickled his feet, brought him small stones as gifts. But one afternoon, laughter turned to insult. Ishmael's teasing, innocent to him, struck Sarah's heart like an arrow. I saw her storm toward Abraham, her face red with fury. Cast out this bondwoman and her son. For the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. Her words pierced me like the desert wind. Abraham's face fell, torn between love and obedience. I saw him turn his face to God again. That night, he came to my tent. His voice was broken. God said, "Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice." He could not look at me long. By dawn, I was packing bread and water. Ishmael slept beside me, unaware that the morning sun would rise upon our exile. We walked until our feet cracked. The desert stretched endlessly, a sea of burning gold and silence. I carried the skin of water close to my chest, rationing each drop. Ishmael tried to be brave, but his voice grew weak, his step slower. The heat was merciless. My eyes blurred. I remembered the spring of Bir Lahai Roi, the God who saw me. "Do you see me still?" I whispered. By midday, the water was gone. Ishmael stumbled and fell. I lifted him, but my arms trembled. Finally, I laid him beneath a small shrub and stepped away, for I could not bear to see him die. "Let me not see the death of the child," I wept, collapsing to the ground. My cries rose into the wind. Then, once again, heaven broke through the silence. "Hagar, what aileth thee? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is." I lifted my face, and before me appeared a well, clear, glistening, alive. I ran, filled the skin with water, and pressed it to my son's lips. Life returned to him like sunrise. The wilderness that had been my grave became our garden. I knew then, I was seen again. The desert became our dwelling place. There were no walls, no neighbors, only sand and sky. But I learned to draw strength from silence. I found berries near the rocks, water from the hidden wells, and peace from the voice I could no longer hear yet still believed in. Ishmael grew quickly. His laughter returned, stronger than before. I taught him how to track footprints, how to listen to the wind for signs of rain, and how to build fire when the nights grew cold. Every time I looked at him, I remembered the promise, "I will make him a great nation." We made our home near Paran, where the mountains guard the edges of the desert. Travelers sometimes passed by, merchants, shepherds, wanderers, and we traded what little we had. Some mocked us, calling us outcasts. Others saw the glint of purpose in my son's eyes and stepped aside. When the nights were long, I told Ishmael of the God who saw me, the one who found me twice in the wilderness. "Never forget," I whispered, "even when men cast you out, God's eyes never turn away." He would nod, eyes glimmering in the firelight. We had no riches, but we had peace, and in the quiet hum of the desert wind, I felt his presence still, unseen but near. The wilderness raised my son into strength. Ishmael was quick with his hands, tall like his father, and fierce like the desert itself. I found him one day carving a bough from the branch of a wild tree. He tested its string, eyes steady with purpose. "Mother," he said, "the wilderness teaches faster than men." I smiled. "Then learn well, my son. This land will not give you kindness freely, but it will teach you wisdom." He practiced day after day, drawing his bow against the horizon, hunting small game for food. The wild goats feared his step, the birds rose when they saw him coming. There was pride in my heart, but also fear. The wilderness had made him strong, yet I knew strength without mercy could turn to bitterness. So each evening, I reminded him. Remember, Ishmael, God saw us when no one else did. Never use your strength to make others unseen. He would nod, though his eyes sometimes burned with questions I could not answer. About Abraham. About Isaac. About what it meant to be cast away. I did not always have the words. So I prayed instead, that God would speak to him as he once spoke to me. Years passed. Ishmael became a man, broad-shouldered, his skin kissed by the desert sun. The wilderness no longer frightened him, he moved through it like one who belonged. One morning, I saw travelers approaching. I watched their shadows stretch long across the sand, men from the land of Canaan. My heart trembled. Among them was a face I knew too well. Abraham. He looked older now, beard streaked with gray, step slower. Yet the fire in his eyes was the same. He greeted us gently, calling Ishmael my son. For a moment, I forgot the pain of years. He brought gifts, bread, meat, water, and a cloak. And then he told me of Isaac, now grown, strong, and chosen. My heart twisted between joy and ache. But Abraham's visit was not only farewell. He said, God has made you a nation, Hagar. I see it in your son. He blessed Ishmael with his hands and looked to the heavens, whispering words I could not hear. When he left, I watched him disappear into the dust, the man who had once sent me away now returning to honor the son I bore. It was then I understood, rejection does not end the promise. Sometimes it begins it. As the years turned, the boy who once clung to my hand became a man ready for his own tent. I searched among travelers and merchants until I found him a wife, a woman from Egypt, my homeland. When she came, memories of my youth flooded back, the Nile scent, the music, the voices of my people. Ishmael welcomed her warmly. Their union was simple, but I saw in it the continuation of what God had promised, generations rising from wilderness soil. That night, as I sat beneath the stars, I thought of Sarah. Of Isaac. Of all that was and all that had become. I realized that pain does not erase purpose. It refines it. The desert had taken much from me, but it had also given me back myself. No longer a slave. No longer forgotten. No longer nameless. I was Hagar, the woman God saw. And through Ishmael, nations would remember that the outcast is never outside of God's reach. The years moved like caravans across the dunes. I grew older, slower in step, softer in speech, but peace lived within me. My son had become a leader, a man of the bow, his tent stretching across the wilderness of Paran. The children of Ishmael ran barefoot in the sand, their laughter filling the air like music. Each time I saw them, I remembered the angel's words. I will multiply thy seed exceedingly. And it was true. Ishmael's people were many, fierce, and free. They roamed the wide lands between Egypt and Assyria. Traders spoke his name with respect, Ishmael, son of Abraham. Sometimes, when the wind rose from the east, I imagined it carried whispers from far away, the voice of my son's brother, Isaac, dwelling in the land of promise. We were divided by distance, but not forgotten. Both sons, born of one father. Both touched by one God. One by covenant. One by mercy. I smiled when I thought of it. The God who saw me had written both stories with the same ink, one of grace, one of compassion. One evening, the air changed, that familiar stillness that once filled the wilderness before the voice came. I knew it instantly. The same presence I had felt at the spring of Bir Lahai and again near Beersheba. My heart trembled, though my body was frail. Lord, I whispered, it has been many years. Yet you still find me here. The wind moved around me, gentle, warm. Though I could not see him, I felt his words, soft as light. Hagar, you have been seen again. Through your son, I have raised a people. Through your pain, I have written mercy upon generations. Tears filled my eyes. The years of wandering, the loneliness, the rejection, all of it became a story of God's eyes never looking away. I realized then. Being seen by God is not a single moment. It is a lifetime of being carried when you do not even know you are held. When my strength began to fade, I called for Ishmael. He came quickly, kneeling beside me, his hands rough from work, his eyes filled with love. My son, I said, when you were born, I thought I was forgotten. But God saw us. Twice he found me, once in my running, once in my despair. Never forget the wells he gave us. He nodded, his voice breaking. Mother, you taught me to find God in the silence. You taught me that the wilderness is not empty. I smiled, weakly touching his face. The God who saw me will see you too. Do not let bitterness rule you. Strength is nothing without mercy. He wept, pressing his forehead to my hands. Ishmael, I whispered, you are proof that even the castaway carries a promise. Remember me not as a servant, but as a woman God saw. He promised me he would. And as the sun dipped low, I felt peace rise within me, the same peace I felt by the spring where my story began. I do not know where my bones rest now, nor how many years have passed since my last breath, but my story still flows, like the wells I once found in the desert. When women weep alone, he still sees. When the rejected wander, he still speaks. When the forgotten cry, he still answers. I am Hagar, once a slave, then a mother, finally a testimony. I walked through emptiness and found eternity in the wilderness. And if ever you wonder whether God sees you, remember me. For the desert may be vast, but his eyes, his mercy, reach even there. He is the God who sees. Hagar's journey reminds us that no one is ever truly forgotten. Even in the loneliest wilderness. Even when you feel cast aside. God still sees you. He saw a slave girl and her tears. He saw a mother fighting for her child. And he turned her pain into a promise that still echoes through generations. So when life feels dry, when you're walking through your own desert, remember Hagar's words. Thou God sayest me. If this story touched your heart, click like to let others find it. Comment below what lesson Hagar's journey taught you. And subscribe to Faith Circle for Women, where we bring to life the untold stories of women God never forgot. Because every woman's story matters. Every pain has a purpose. And every wilderness still holds a well of hope.